Greetings Whovians and welcome to Timey Wimey Review and a new feature on the Timey Wimey Review YouTube channel entitled Beyond Doctor Who, where I look at various TV or movies that has loose connections with Doctor Who, whether it's actors or writers that has been involved in other media projects. So for example, I've done a couple of these with the Russell T Davies drama Nolly that was based on Noel Gordon, and the Stephen Moffat wonderfully written drama Douglas is Cancelled, which was also starred Alex Kingston and Karen Gillan. But for this official Beyond Doctor Who, I'm going to look at the world of Thunderbirds. Now, I'm going to take this very loosely for Beyond Doctor Who, because there's not been loads of connections really between Doctor Who and Thunderbirds. It mainly is voice artists that have appeared in Doctor Who, so such as Jeremy Wilkin, David Graham, Shane Rimmer. As well as Doctor Who, Thunderbirds has just had such an impact in my life that I wanted to do a bit of a nostalgic retrospective look on this iconic show. So please hit the subscribe button. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let's have a deep dive into Thunderbirds. If you're not familiar about this show, this was created by Gerry Anderson, who was pretty much been dubbed as the UK's answer to Walt Disney. And for the 60s and 50s, 60s and 70s, I totally agree. He went on and did various live action and puppet shows such as Captain Scarlet, Stingray, Joe 90, Space 1999, UFO, Space Precinct, a lot of shows for the UK and worldwide. But I would say the jewel in the crown was always Thunderbirds. Everyone just loves this show. So this is a show that is all about rescuing and espionage dramas as well. This was all from the brainchild of Jeff Tracy, a multimillionaire that lives on a remote island and has set up this secret organization known as International Rescue, where if you are in a spot of bother, you are in super trouble and no one else can help, then you call up Thunderbirds, you call up International Rescue, and Thunderbirds are go. With the amazing technological vehicles that can go on to any rescues at any point on planet or even off world, and these are piloted by Jeff's 5 sons. So you have Scott in control of Thunderbird 1, Virgil Tracy, who's in control of Thunderbird 2, which is like a transport carrier that sort of lands with all these various pods of various vehicles for whatever situation is involved. Alan Tracy, who's the astronaut for Thunderbird 3 to go into any space rescue missions. Gordon Tracy, the aquanaut who controls Thunderbird 4 for any underwater rescues. And we have John Tracy manning the space station above Earth in Thunderbird 5. Completing this roundup, we have the engineer brains who created all of these fantastic vehicles and rescue ships, and also we have the London agent Lady Penelope and a very faithful butler Parker, who once was a safecracker, who sort of helps out in sort of any sort of espionage type of situations where international rescues come into their own sort of attack, particularly with the villainous Hood, who will stop at nothing to know the secrets behind the Thunderbird machines. 32 action-packed episodes which just takes your breath away, even 60 years after it was first broadcast on ITV here in the UK and then going on to worldwide success. And my sort of nostalgia for Thunderbirds, or my sort of first glimpses of Thunderbirds, was, I think for me, a little bit just before the big 90s boom period that I'll get to in a moment. I just remember my parents having a video of Thunderbirds, and I think it was when they released them in sort of late 80s, and I think they just went on a bit of a nostalgia trip and just watching an episode. I just remember the sort of end credit cards coming up with the various vehicles. I don't remember watching any of the episodes themselves, just that kind of end credits. But it was when it was launched again in the 90s on BBC Two that it just became Thunderbirds fever all over again, where comics, toys, trading cards, And particularly the toys. I was one of the lucky ones to have got the Tracy Island, the very sought after Tracy Island back in 1993, I believe. Could be a bit wrong with that date, but this was the number one Christmas toy, Tracy Island, and it was getting neon impossible. It reminds me of the film Jingle All the Way, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Bit of a film flop, Jingle All the Way, where one of the critics was saying that was absolutely impossible, that a sort of sought after toy that was sold out everywhere, and he's trying to go around Christmas doing that. Absolute poppycock, because my parents did that. They managed to get a Tracy Island off the shelf in Woolworths on Christmas Eve. They went everywhere to try and find this. This is beyond, before internet or anything like that. They was trancing around various places to find one, and I was a very, very lucky boy to have got that to go with the Thunderbird vehicles as well. And yeah, this was one of the toys that I never stopped playing, just reenacting any of the sort of rescue scenes from Thunderbirds. But yeah, for the unfortunate people that didn't get a Tracy Island, Blue Peter, the show Blue Peter, did their own how to make your own Tracy Island with bits of paper, glue, yogurt pots, all that kind of stuff, sticky back plastic. So much so that it was very popular in terms of um, the blueprint sheets that they did, the little worksheets to how to build it all step by step. That was absolutely just escalated into so much demand that they had to do their own separate Blue Peter video on how to make that. So that's just how, to me, just how big Thunderbirds was in the 90s. But that was me with my rose tinted glasses, talking about Thunderbirds as a child. But into adulthood, does this TV show still stand up? Absolutely. Short answer is yes. And I think the reason why is because of the, well, one, the vehicles. They are just fantastic vehicles. You had Thunderbird 1 that's always at the danger zone, Scott Tracy assessing the situation and then needing to call out any more. So Thunderbird 2 with Pod 5 or something. We need the mole. So off goes Thunderbird 2, off Virgil, and maybe have like Alan or Brains along to sort of help with the rescue operation. So Thunderbird 2 arrives with its monstrous vehicles as well, such as Firefly, Thunderbird 4. Sometimes he just drops the pod into the sea. How Gordon didn't break his bones, shatter his bones when he was dropped into that pod, into the water, I have no idea. But yeah, all these wonderful vehicles. Thunderbird 3 for any space rescue operations. Thunderbird 5 just whizzing around in orbit, with John Tracy manning it, but sometimes swaps with Alan as well. So at least he got a bit of a break in space, but he was kind of like the lonely guy up there in space. These were only originally going to be 30-minute episodes as well, and the producer, or the guy that wanted Jerry Anderson to make these wonderful shows, Lou Grade, when he saw the first episode of Thunderbirds, the story goes is that he stood up and said, Jerry, this is not a TV show, and Jerry was looking very disappointed, and then Lou said, this is a movie, this is a feature film, and commissioned it to be 50 minutes or at least an hour with adverts. And I totally agree. These are 32 mini movies because of just how glorious these episodes are. And yeah, you could sort of see probably in the first series of Thunderbirds that there was a lot of bits where there's a lot of padding in them, but I kind of like it in some aspects, because you can tell where it was kind of going to be just the situation, then the rescue, but I kind of like the added extra parts of it where you see the other people trying to attempt the rescue first and fail, and then they call up international rescue, and then sort of it just ramps up the tension and the drama, but also gave time to have just the human emotional qualities for these wonderful characters, and that's in thanks to Sylvia Anderson. Jerry Anderson was certainly the mastermind behind the stories of Thunderbirds, but I would say Sylvia Anderson was equally the heart and soul of the characters that you see on screen, and make them as sort of believable. And yes, we know the puppets, we do the little jokey sort of wobbling around and the tilting head and but I think that's more out of just sort of love letter and fan service really on that one. But for me, because of how the characters are portrayed, you make them, you know, they are basically just, you do believe them, you do sort of, they are real, even though they are sort of puppets. You do see them as real characters, and that's thanks in part to Sylvia's sort of storyboarding of these characters, but also thanks to the voice artists themselves. They took this really believable. You had to sell what you are saying, otherwise it just collapsed. There's so many to choose from, but I'll pick a few out. So Shane Rimmer, who was the voice of Scott Tracy, again, such a rich voice, and you have heard that voice in various TV and movies. Superman, Star Wars, Doctor Who, you will recognize that voice instantly. And yeah, a great voice artist as well, but you know, perfect for Scott Tracy. David Graham, who was the late great David Graham, who was the voice of Brains and Parker. And yeah, the differences between the two is just so different. You know, the two very much different characters. And again, David didn't have to do that, but because he sort of believed in his I think you've got to have that passion in you to make this work and make these characters come to life. And you know, David had a long-standing association with Jerry Anderson, as well as going on to do like Peppa Pig, for example. You know, you can see why he was a great voice artist. And other ones like Peter Delaney, Donnelly. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name. But he was the voice of Jeff Tracy, and just that iconic countdown at the end, at the start of each episode with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Thunderbirds I go. Again, just the richness of the voices just brought these characters to life. And speaking of that countdown, here's my top 5 Thunderbird episodes. In at 5 is The Imposters. Now, this episode is all about what happens when International Rescue are grounded because they are accused of stealing secret plans. They basically did a phony rescue setup to steal some secret plans. So the whole world are on a manhunt for international rescue, and Jeff has to rely on his international rescue agents, led by Lady Penelope, to find out who the real crooks are. Elsewhere, though, there is a man stuck in space, and they can't rescue him because as soon as they launch one of the vehicles, they're going to get tracked, and they're going to find out where the Tracy Island is. And it's just a fun espionage drama, and I really love the scene where all the different vehicles being like on this worldwide manhunt for international rescue are being launched. It's just a nice sort of outside the box rescue, whilst basically international rescue are confined to their limitations because of being set up for this fraudulent act. And number 4 is Sun Probe. This is more of a nostalgia sort of one for me, because this was the first one that had Thunderbird 3 going out on the rescue mission, and I love that sort of opening montage of what's going to happen in the episode. And just seeing Thunderbird 3, I just jumped up for joy, because saw Thunderbirds 1 and 2 in action quite a few weeks now, and then we've got Thunderbird 3 going into action and rescuing the rocket that's heading towards the sun. Yeah, it's just again a great tension-filled 50 minutes of action with some brilliant set pieces, and particularly as well Thunderbird 2 going to the snowy mountains. Again, all the shots, the great direction, cinematography and special effects just makes this a great top 5 Thunderbird episode. Number 3 is City of Fire. So this is a big tower building that is just the world's sort of biggest shopping mall, hotel, multiplex. Kind of, I don't know if this was just before the Tower Inferno. Let me know in the comments. I think it was really, but that's basically Thunderbird's version of the movie The Towering Inferno. And yeah, this whole building is just ablaze. And what I like about this is just the direction action shots. So you had like this exploding fire building going off, and then you see all the rescue vehicles backing off. So these are all like the fire attendants to try and pull out this fire. And again, just great directions. Number 2 is Terror in New York. This episode was about the Empire State Building being moved to another location, but it crumbles, collapses, and 2 men are trapped under the rubble. But the main heart of this is Thunderbird 2 being taken out of action as it was shot down accidentally by the US Navy. That scene is dramatic and traumatic, seeing your beloved Thunderbird 2 being shot down. This episode was also part of the Thunderbirds Super Space Theatre movie compilations of 2 episodes being smashed into one, but had a lot of the Thunderbird soundtrack sort of poured over it. Arguably, too much music was in those Super Space Theatre versions, but I defy anyone that doesn't like this version of the Thunderbird 2 being shot down with the dramatic Thunderbirds music in the background. Honestly, it is just a chef's kiss to an already fantastic scene. But in at number 1 is Trapped in the Sky, the very first Thunderbird episodes, which just tells the story of all the characters that you need to know about Thunderbirds, what international rescue are all about, and what they can do to save lives. So this episode, they have to rescue this supersonic aircraft known as the Fireflash, as the villainous Hood has put a bomb on this undercarriage, so they can't, so if they land, the bomb will go off. So the international rescue are really put on their their baptism of fire in terms of how to execute this rescue. Again, this episode just got great pacing. It just introduces all the main characters, including the Hood that created this problem in the first place, to get the secret of international rescue, and we just get a tension-filled, dramatic ending to how Thunderbirds managed to get Fireflash and land to safety. That is my top 5. Let me know your top 5 Thunderbird episodes in the comments. And again, there's so many to choose from. Honorable mentions like Pit of Peril, Attack of the Alligators, Atlantic Inferno, Countdown to Disaster. There's just so many to choose from. But it just shows just how good this show is. And this is from script to screen. Again, I've talked about, just in that top 5, about the great dramatic scenes that we're involved with, and that's all thanks to Derek Meddings and his team creating these wonderful vehicles, blowing up all these fantastic buildings or structures, and or all the aircrafts. And again, just this was all sort of just, you know, they had no blueprint to work on. This is just them sort of trial and error, and wow, what a team to have. You can't do this in this day and age, and I think that's why it just holds up, because it's practical effects. It is just still more jaw-dropping than CGI effects, in my opinion, and it just makes it feel more real, even though it is all just in the world of puppet animation and models. You just believe in everything that you see on screen. And add together the wonderful music by Barry Gray as well. I'm just barely scratching the surface on him. Again, mentioned it in the Super Space Theatre, where they really just hammered all of Barry Gray's music in some kind of weird Frankenstein cobbled together for the movies. Again, a little bit too much sometimes. You know, less is more, and just let those dramatic scenes play out without any music. But Barry Gray's music in this is just out of this world. If anything, is an underrated music composer. Again, you can see why Jerry Anderson used him for such a long time for many of his shows in the 60s and 70s. And again, the iconic Thunderbird theme. Why is that not the UK's national anthem? Why isn't it not England's national anthem? Why? It's just so dramatic. It's just iconic, instantly recognizable, and just gives you goosebumps when you hear that music be played out. Thunderbirds is just a show that has stood the test of time. It was it's very rarely been off screen since being initially broadcast in 1965. It's had lots of revivals over the years. The 90s big boom period came back again in 2000s as well. Also launched lots of movies and reboots as well. So we had the classic 60s Thunderbird movies. We had the 2004 movie, which, you know, polarizing opinions. But we also had the revived Thunderbirds version back in 2016. And yeah, you can see why it's just never gone away. It's just a brilliant ideological premise of people all over the world that need help, and these people can help them. And what a world to live in. You know, we've seen lots of horrible events happen around the world where people are trapped, and this is what Jerry's inspiration was. There was these miners that was trapped, I think, in Germany, and they had to implement this rescue operation, and that kind of spun on to him creating this show. And with this show now celebrating its 60th anniversary, particularly Trapped in the Sky, that should be one of the episodes that I just kept into preservation in some kind of TV Hall of Fame. But now it's back again, being relaunched on Blu-ray with wonderful HD. It's just going to be looking even more glorious. It's going to be back on the cinemas as well in the UK. So if you do get the time and it is at your local cinema, they're showing Trapped in the Sky and Terror in New York. So my top 2 Thunderbird episodes. So if you do get a chance to see it on the big screen, do so. You are not going to be disappointed. But if you haven't seen Thunderbirds before, do check it out. It just has the heart, the soul, the music, the special effects. You're going to fall in love with these characters regardless. I think it is definitely the jewel in the crown of Jerry Anderson's work. So again, if you haven't seen this show before, do check it out. It's very easy to find online or on Blu-ray, DVD. You're going to have a blast. But if you have seen Thunderbirds, let me know in the comments below. What was your favourite episodes? What's your nostalgic memories for Thunderbirds? Did you play with the toys? Read the comics? Please share all in the comments. But thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like, share and subscribe. Hit the cloister bell for more notifications. Come say hello and follow me on Facebook and X. And do check out my other fantastic Doctor Who related content on Timey Wimey TikTok and the Timey Wimey YouTube channel. A lot more Doctor Who reviews, so please stay tuned. Lots for you to see on there in the world of Doctor Who, so please do check that out on the Timey Wimey YouTube channel. And also, I hope you enjoyed Beyond Doctor Who, because I want to launch a few more there. There's been quite a lot of dramas featuring brilliant, talented actors and writers that have been heavily involved in Doctor Who. So I'd like to sort of explore that a bit more. But don't worry, normal Doctor Who reviews will be resuming very, very soon, as well as my quizzes and the Doctor Who bargain hunting videos as well. But thanks again for watching. Stay safe. FAB.